When you think logistics, your brain may conjure up thoughts of a warehouse full of goods or that delivery company who didn't get you that important package in time. But in the world of acquisition logistics is so much more. Acquisition logistics isn't just getting equipment from point A to point B. Syscom's logisticians have critical input to all phases of the system's lifecycle, from maintenance considerations to ensuring the smallest of replacement parts is available. The Marine Corps is modernizing and adapting for the future fight, with logistics and maintenance playing a critical role. It is important for sustainability to be factored in throughout the program's lifecycle to ensure we equip our warfighters with resilient capabilities. Today, I'm happy to have two gentlemen on the show, TJ Echols and Master Gunnery Sergeant Judah Crawford, who support logistics and maintenance for our Command Element Systems portfolio. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Tripp, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Master Guns, how did you end up here in the Corps and at Systems Command?
It's not really too much of an awesome story. I was holding down two jobs and going to college. I got my girlfriend pregnant, and I couldn't hold down three part-time jobs in college. So my father was an Army Ranger. My uncles were both Air Force and Navy. I went down to the recruiting station. None of those guys were around. I walked past the last office on the left. On the way out the door, and there's a guy standing there in a funny-looking uniform. Asked him what branch of service it was and what did they do. He told me about the Marine Corps, and I was immediately hooked. So I signed up and shipped shortly thereafter. Long story short, throughout my time in the Marine Corps, I ended up as the 2800 monitor in charge of issuing orders, assignment orders to enlisted Marines for the ground electronics maintenance field throughout the enterprise. For myself, when it came my turn to get orders, I said, I'm going to go to California, to Camp Pendleton, where I had never been stationed, but long wanted to. About 2 weeks after that, the Ockfield manager came to me and said, hey, we've got a request for you. Instead of going to California, we'd like for you to go to Systems Command. There's a lot of important things we'd like to get after, and Systems Command is the place where it happens. So I switched orders to Systems Command, didn't know what Systems Command was or what I was getting myself into, but I'm really happy that I came over and that I get to work with a lot of the logisticians at the command that are really about putting not just equipment in the Marine's hands, but equipment that's maintainable and sustainable, and it's going to increase every Marine's capability and make us a much more lethal force.
So the Marine Corps said, Roger, that you want to go to a coast, and then they just sent you to the other one.
They kept me at the coast, yes.
Well, TJ, what about yourself? What was your path to excellence here at the command, and how did you get into logistics?
So I have no military background. Actually, when I was a senior in my undergrad at the University of Central Florida, I got an internship at the Naval Air Warfare Center Training and Simulation Division, NOC-TSD, which is next to PM Traces down in Orlando. I was scanning drawings from the 70s, if they didn't crumble from how old they were, editing technical manuals, which has really still helped me today with Microsoft Word and Microsoft Office products. After graduating UCF, I completed the Command's intern program with the Navy and continued as a logistics manager with undersea simulators for the Navy. Went on to completing my MBA, and once I graduated from that, I got an opportunity with Systems Command. So I came up to Virginia. Everybody thinks I'm crazy, one of those leaving Florida for Virginia, but I love it. I love the seasons, the change. It's not hot all the time, so that's nice. I started with route reconnaissance and clearance and a few programs within PM Engineer Systems as a logistics manager with Syscom. And then I moved on to PEO Land Systems after about 4 years with ES and supported GBAT within the PEO with AMAN pads, MRIC, and the dismountable air defense equipment that they have there. Now I am back with Syscom, supporting the Master Guns here with SATCOM equipment. I specifically manage the McWiz family of systems. It's the Marine Corps wideband satellite communications, expeditionary light and heavy variants. Full circle from Hospital Point to Tech Parkway back and forth. And now I'm back here talking to you.
Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here in the command. When you went to PEO, you were still a Syscom employee. So you never truly left.
Right.
But now, so you're in the command element systems portfolio. And so you talked a little bit about what you're doing there. But yeah, just in general, what are your roles over there in CES?
My role specifically, I'm the senior enlisted advisor to the portfolio manager. I'm the link between the Marines and Colonel Monta, the portfolio manager. So I handle a lot of the administrative minutia that has to go on with that. A lot more than that, my background, I'm a 2891, so I'm a ground electronics maintainer. So everything ground electronics, I like to try to deal with and get my hands in. Specifically, our MOS is tied to the communications MOS. And in that, under command element systems, everything communications. So what I do, I fall under the PM logistics competency. With that, I touch every PM within CES and assist with every with all the logistical efforts that I can, whether it be a TM Valvair, a LoRa, a level of repair analysis, if we have to do any kind of testing, so on and so forth. So when the decision comes up to the colonel, and he has to make a decision, he's going to look to me for some solid advice, and I have to report honestly. And then also when it comes to the Marines and the fleet, because that's what's really important. We're going to put communications equipment in the hands of Marines, and they need to be able to not only operate it, but have a reliable system. Once that system goes down, these logisticians, they're responsible for ensuring that these Marines have the capability to repair that equipment and get it back in service so they can get back in the fight.
So you've got a bit of the care and feeding of the equipment?
Yes, sir.
Talking to the colonel about that, but then also the care and feeding of the Marines within the portfolio.
That is a lot of it, yes, sir.
Excellent. What about you, TJ?
Within the SATCOM team, the MGySgt family of systems has the expeditionary variant. So it's a smaller satellite system that provides communication to units around the world. And that's been fielded for about a year now. So we're going through the start of the sustainment phase, seeing how the IIP has been working, what items are failing at a faster or slower rate than expected, and adjusting there. We're instituting a field maintenance initiative that I'll probably talk a little bit more in depth here coming up. So those have been my focuses for the expeditionary variant. For the light and heavy versions of MGySgt, those are going through source selection right now. Those are part of a $500 million program that we've received proposals and are evaluating. I'm focusing on the vendor's approach, mainly to all of the different requirements within the P-spec and the statement of work, and how the material solution the vendors are proposing is going to be trained, maintained, operated, and supported. And it's interesting to see from an industry's perspective what their support strategy is compared to what the Marine Corps support strategy is. And there's going to be some lessons learned, I think, as we get further on into the program. It's also great to see how efficient industry has gotten over the last 15 years that I've been with the government. These last proposals have really shown how industry sees the government's skill set evolving.
Well, source selections are always kind of hush-hush. So I look forward to seeing, what you end up picking and how those solutions end up working for us in the Marine Corps. And as you said, taking advantage of many of the efficiencies that industry provides. Government has a reputation of being inefficient, and industry has a reputation of being efficient. So if we can, pirate their efficiency, let's do that. So as we talk logistics, I think a lot of the listeners are probably familiar with the quotation. It's often attributed to General Omar Bradley, and it goes, "Amateurs talk strategy, but professionals talk logistics." And so whether Bradley ever said that or not, I think the sentiment is as true now as it ever was. Can either of you really talk to that and explain to us why is logistics so important?
In the Marine Corps, I think logistics is more important than any other service in industry, just because of the Marine Corps' mission. A lot of times they're in a secluded, austere environment with minimal resources. And having a complex piece of equipment that has to operate at a maximum efficiency is a logistics endeavor that is very motivating for me personally to figure out some of these challenges. So really collaborating between the manpower structure that is available and the cross-functional skill sets that can be provided for maintaining and operating the pieces of equipment. So you're not establishing a larger footprint than what's really needed. So you want your technical publications to provide the procedures that are the most efficient with well-trained personnel, spare parts that are mobile and available, and the equipment is maintained to its maximum efficiency.
And that's an aspect of logistics. I think a lot of us think logistics in terms of having enough food, water, ammo, and all of that, but keeping the equipment up and running, the maintainability and reliability of the equipment is also part of logistics.
Maintenance is a function of logistics. Our leaders, now more than ever, looking towards organic maintenance. And I say that because we go from ship to shore. So therein lies that logistical challenge that TJ was referring to. We can kind of see where our next battle may be headed, and that is an extreme challenge for us. So if there's no port, if there's no route in logistically for us, then how are we going to maintain that equipment? Organic maintenance is definitely the answer that I know that I'm pushing the portfolio towards. And I say that because Marines need to be able to, depending on the level of organic maintenance, Marines need to be able to repair equipment at the forward edges of the battlefield as far as possible, keeping that battlefield commander as lethal as possible. They can do that through proper C2, command and control. And they do that through communication. If they're not able to issue orders, if they're not able to get intel, if they're not able to receive and pass securely, then therein lies a problem. I wholeheartedly believe that our equipment does need to be maintainable and sustainable at the forward edge of the battlefield. And there's been a big issue, that we're trying to get rid of CLS, contracted logistics support. No, we're not. It's just that we're not going to be able to have contracted logistical support in a lot of these austere areas. No longer are we going to see contractors in the combat zone right alongside Marines. It's just not going to happen.
So we've talked a good about maintenance and maintainability. So where exactly does maintenance, maintainability fall within the acquisition lifecycle? When do we start planning for that?
So you're going to start planning up front. Once you have an idea of the need for a piece of equipment, then you're going to conduct market research, try and find capabilities that are available, and see if those capabilities are sustainable.
Okay.
So are they maintainable, or do you need a rocket scientist on the ground 24/7 to make sure that the piece of equipment is up and running? As the Master Guns alluded to earlier, the ship-to-shore operations that the Marine Corps operates under, we just don't have that type of ability to have a wizard on the ground 24/7 with an abundance of equipment to provide spares and only rely on operators to operate the equipment. Those kind of things all come into account when you're instating your requirements. You want to have a mean time to repair that is as low as possible, and operational availability that is as high as possible. Right. And to get to those ultimate conclusions, there's a lot of little nitnoid aspects that need to be looked at on a piece of gear. As I alluded to earlier, the modularity of the piece of equipment has been very beneficial for us in logistics from an operator and maintenance standpoint. So the remove replace of a component by sending the entire piece of equipment in. Those are the kind of things that we look for when we're instating our requirements. Is there a piece of equipment out there that has those kind of capabilities to keep as many performance measures at their maximum capacity while the equipment or a piece of the equipment is being repaired?
And then even better, I would assume if there's commonality between different types of gear, so that we're not keeping 5 spares for that, 5 for that, and 5 for that. So some commonality. So your answer of kind of we have to plan early, it's kind of early and often, I think is the answer I get almost any time I ask that question of anybody here on the podcast. It's nobody says, we wait till the end to worry about that. So if I look towards the end, sustainment, where is logistics, maintenance, where's the role, and where's the acquisition role on the sustainment end?
When we're looking at logistics being involved in the sustainment process, and when you're building that requirement, a lot of requirements are built or worded very loosely, which allows for the acquisitions process to go out and see several different vendors, several different pieces of equipment and capabilities, and say, hey, this, and this may answer, or piece together something that may answer the need.
The requirement kind of describes it must be sustainable, but it doesn't tell us the how.
It doesn't tell us the
That's
how.
the art that you guys bring to this.
Right. And so that's where the logistician comes into play, especially during the source selection process. The logisticians need to be able to go in and say, hey, this is saying that it's sustainable, but it's actually not. They understand the ins and outs of different MOSs that will be operating and maintaining the piece of equipment. Therein lies a lot of knowledge, to help the sustainment process. Now, if that's not really built in the very beginning, therein lies a problem. The logisticians are in this thing for the life cycle of whatever piece of equipment it is. That means from cradle to grave, that logistician has to ensure that piece of equipment can stay in service until its end date. And it has to be maintained until its end date. A lot of times when a certain vendor may say, we're not going to produce this product for you anymore, or we're not going to produce circuit cards or whatever for this piece of equipment any longer. So you have to figure it out on your own. Therein lies an issue, because we're not expecting to get rid of whatever piece of equipment it is, because it still fits our need.
Right.
So how do we get around that? The logisticians at CES and TJ just recently said, hey, you know what? We're going to plan for this in the beginning so we don't run into that problem later on. So now we have to figure out maintenance procedures for the Quist system and how we're going to be able to sustain that thing. We say that it'll stay in service for 3 to 5 years, but we look at a lot of our systems and they've been in 15 and 20, 25 years. So that whole 3 to 5 years, I got it. But most of our systems have been in a lot longer than that, and we can expect a lot of our other systems to do the same because they last.
Earlier, you were talking about you give recommendations and advice to Colonel Monta. And so when I listened to you just now, so there's a difference between something being maintainable and supportable here in North America, where we've got full access to whatever. And most of our industry is going to be more familiar with that. I think what you're telling us earlier is you bring a knowledge and experience of what it takes to be able to support it away from a comfortably well-supplied North America. Driving around Ohio, you can always find gasoline. But in the middle of some of the places we have to go, not so much. You bring that subject matter expertise to the team for that.
Colonel Monta knows, and he'll ask me a simple question during most of the briefs or meetings. He says, can Lance Corporal Crawford fix this? Will Lance Corporal Crawford be okay with this? And I sit there and think, and I'll tell him yes, sir, or no, sir, because Lance Corporal Crawford has to be able to get that piece of equipment back up and running. And if I don't have the tools necessary to do that, then why even give me the piece of equipment in the first place? I'm not going to get into a combat battle down in New Orleans, right, or Richmond, Virginia. It's, unless the enemy comes to our shores. Right. So, but for the most part, especially when we're doing our testing events, we'll do one testing event separate from another. Heat versus humidity. Colonel Monta has been doing this acquisitions thing for a very long time. And him and I kind of think alike when we say, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing these testing events separately? I don't fight somewhere where it's hot and it's not humid, or it's humid and it's not hot. You show me a place where it's very humid and it's not hot. It's really hard. So that's what these logisticians, when they're doing this kind of stuff, and they're thinking through this piece of equipment, being able to be sustained and maintained in austere environments. That's exactly what they're getting at. Jungles, environments with a very thick canopy, environments that are very, very hot. We have systems that we're going to go fight in Iraq. Iraq was over 115 degrees daily.
140 degrees in a Connex box.
Exactly. Right. So with that equipment has to be able to operate in that. And if you're telling me that your piece of equipment can handle that type of temperature, weather, and in those types of environments, okay, cool. But I need to see the proof.
We're going to go out and test it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So we do all of our acquisition stuff here, and then we field it. We send it out to Lance Corporal Crawford. Now he is going to be responsible for using this piece of gear out there. What do we do logistics-wise? What's your role, whether it's in-service reviews of the equipment once it's out there? What is your role, God forbid, there's a mishap with a piece of equipment? Or if the equipment just isn't doing when it's out in the real world, it's not doing what we thought it would do, and they put in a product quality deficiency report? The
first avenue is to put in a PQDR, a product quality deficiency report. The logistician gets that. And that's the route that they take to be able to remedy whatever issue it is. God forbid any type of mishap occurs, but if something like that were to happen, myself and Colonel Monte, we take that very, very, very seriously.
Whether that's going back and looking at the training that was done for the Marines to use, yes, the maintaining. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Another big avenue that we use is we have a material readiness working group that we do on a quarterly basis, where we bring 1, 2, and 3 MEF maintainers. We invite the operators as well because it's their equipment. We also bring in Mar4 Res, and we go over whatever issues that they have in the fleet with whatever piece of equipment that Command Element Systems has. The good part about that is that Colonel Monta, the portfolio manager, sits in that material readiness working group. So Marines can talk directly to Colonel Monta, the portfolio manager, and say, here is my issue. Here is what I'm having a problem with. He is taking notes. He also has his PMs in there and his logisticians as well. We nug down and get to whatever answer that we need to. If we can't find an answer right then and there, we take it back and we start doing our research to try to get the fleet an answer. Because what he wants, ultimately, is he wants a lethal Marine Corps.
So you mentioned Mar4 Res, which in my mind, I usually think in terms of the active components within the Marine Corps. Of course, Mar4 Res, they're doing a weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. And so logistics maintenance is going to look very different at Mar4 Res than it will, in the other 3 realms in the Marine Corps. So
they're just as big a part of it as the active duty component, because they have a lot of training that they have to conduct. They can't get that training done. They can't work on that equipment if the equipment is always down. So Marines that are at the INI, the active duty Marines that are at the INI that have to inspect and instruct the reserves, they need proper working equipment. The logisticians, just like the active duty, they ensure that these Marines have what they need to get that done.
It feels to me like we do more logistics testing that has been incorporated into our overall acquisition process. Am I right? Is that relatively recent, or have we always done that and I just didn't notice it before?
So that's been around a while, and
Okay.
sometimes testing can take a brand towards the engineering competency.
Okay.
But there are tests that have the same approach and planning that your equipment tests would. So when you're doing a TM verification or verifying a training curriculum, you're still going to have your schedules, your plans, you're going to have your cost estimate that you want to try and keep to. You want to coordinate your personnel and facilities, similar to the traditional tests that most people think of. There's also testing that can be reduced. So when another service has a similar piece of equipment or the same piece of equipment that you or the Marine Corps is looking at taking on and fielding, sometimes we can adopt some of those test results and provide just validation testing, both from an engineering and logistics standpoint. So I've supported programs where we were the SECA and the Army or the Navy was the PICA.
Right.
So your tests might still be inherent to the program, but they might be at a reduced level because the technical manual was already written, but you have a Marine operating and maintaining the piece of equipment, vice a soldier. So the procedures are going to be different because the skill set might be a little different, and the training they've received at their formal schools might be a little different. So your verification or your test might not be as intense as a normal event.
Well, I think when the Master Guns earlier was talking about we're not going to fight somewhere that's hot and isn't also humid.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we harmonize some of these tests rather than go out and test all the gear one day for hot and one day for let's just do it all together. So that harmonizing our needs with the Army's needs. Obviously, we the Corps have some unique needs insofar as getting stuff aboard ship that the Army is not as concerned with. But excellent. I love that answer, and I appreciate your explaining that.
There's also PHS&T, that's packaging, storage, handling, and transportation, which can also kind of move towards the engineering side from a structural and environmental perspective. But especially the transportation of the equipment is a crucial portion of logistics. And so logistics is heavily involved with those tests that take place, the containers that we're going to use, how they're handled, at what level of security and sensitivity they're going to be handled. All of that is eventually incorporated into your fielding plan, which we have to discuss during the fielding conference and make sure all the users are on board. And that all originates from the requirements and the subsequent tests.
So much of what we're doing right now here at Systems Command, the whole Corps, is focused down on the Force Design 2030 goals. What are you working on right now that directly supports that from maybe from a logistics perspective or from a CES perspective?
Force Design 2030. It's very, very direct, but a lot of what I think we need to understand about Force Design 2030 is that our leaders are looking towards our future fight and how we will be able to win battles in that future fight. A lot of answers to that is to be able to logistically stay in combat and in battle and win more than the enemy. Mm-hmm. So how do you stay in battle longer than the enemy? How do you outlast that enemy? It's through logistics. And a lot of that we have to go back to maintenance as a function of logistics. Keeping your equipment up and running at all points in times, or as best and as quickly as possible. Organic maintenance is what Command Element Systems is moving towards. Okay. We have a standard operating procedure that Mr. Mike Bond and myself, along with the other 2000s, we were drafting up and going through and doing some revisions, and we've staffed it through the other PMs, and it's on Colonel Monta's desk now for a signature. It's something it's going to get after exactly what we're getting at in organic maintenance.
So we talked a lot about planning maintenance, planning logistics here on the acquisition side. How do you and what kind of input do you get from Marines out in the fleet? How does Master Gunnery Sergeant Crawford reach out to Lance Corporal Crawford to get that?
Yeah. So so I do some traveling, not a lot, but I do some traveling. I go to different fielding events, TM Valvers, level of repair analysis, so on and so forth. Also through emails and the material readiness working group, which I stated earlier. I am very involved with the 1, 2, 3 MEF and the Marfa Res 2800 maintenance chiefs. I talk to them on almost a daily basis. They also know that I don't like to just go down to somebody's command and just walk in the door and say, "Hey, I'm Master Guns Crawford," yada yada yada. I ensure that I talk with that other Master Guns Sergeant maintenance chief first. Hey, I will be on deck. I want to speak to some of the Marines, see how our equipment's doing. What are the issues? What are the problems? What can we do better? And I bring all that back to Colonel Monta. I also bring it back to Mr. Mike Bond, and we talk about it. We say, hey, this piece of equipment is not doing what it's supposed to. Talk to the operators and the maintainers. The operators, they have a unique avenue. They just have to talk to the maintainers through the material readiness working group and say, this is not doing what it's supposed to.
within the program office, I understand that, you try to make sure that other members of the program office understand the importance of maintenance. I mean, everybody's got their eyes on whatever their ball is. How do you go about making sure that everybody else understands just how important maintenance and logistics are?
It's kind of personal for me. Combat is a very serious, real scenario. Being in combat and you have rounds coming down range, Lance Corporal Crawford needs to be able to get on whatever piece of equipment and either call for fire, call for a casevac, call for some freaking help. That's what needs to happen. Lance Corporal Crawford needs reliable equipment that when it goes down, I can get it back into service. TJ talked about that mean time between failure, mean time to repair. I need to back in the fight as quick as possible because I want as many American lives to come home as soon as possible. That is how we win battles. Staying in the fight longer by having better equipment, reliable equipment, maintainable and sustainable equipment.
So that's the message that you put out inside the program office?
That is exactly what I talk about day in and day out, through every meeting, and everyone knows how I feel. I've been there. A lot of the previous Marines have as well. Here at Marine Corps Systems Command, you were in a very unique position. You were in the position of actually making the Marine more lethal. You were actually in the position of allowing that Marine to win battles and come home to their family.
So last week I was with a whole bunch of folks from MAR4 PAC, the safety folks from MAR4 PAC, and I had the opportunity to describe to them what I do, which is safety engineering. And a bunch of them came up to me afterwards and were like, I didn't even know you guys existed. First of all, I didn't know Systems Command exists to do what it does. And then I didn't know that you had safety engineers within the command. So for anyone that's listening, I hope they understand and listen to your passion, that you come here and you bring that passion, that philosophy from the fleet into the acquisition command where we do have the opportunity to do that. And so thank you for that. What kind of amazing things has your team accomplished over the last year, and what are you looking at doing in the next?
We've had some research and design type equipment that wanted to be tested out of the SATCOM team, and equipment accountability has become huge in our command and throughout the service. So how do we account for a piece of equipment that is not staying with a unit and might not potentially be fielded? I instituted a accountability process for R&D equipment. It was pretty basic, just assigning a management control number to the asset, vice national stock number and NSN, holding the piece of equipment on DPAS, vice GCSS, keeping it on the program office DPAS account, and loaning or transferring the piece of equipment to the unit's DPAS account with a MFR, memorandum for the record, explaining the situation. So there's some background should anybody come across the gear. Why is there not a TAM assigned to it? Why is there not an NSN? So it was a process that ended up being pretty basic, but took a little bit of communication with supply and MCA to really have instituted.
So are you saving us a whole bunch of money and time and stuff by implementing that?
I believe so. So okay. I think money and time are the two major factors that could potentially come into play. The piece of equipment is still out there. So we're still gaining data from the operation of the equipment. But if it were to be instituted, it would save time and money. But being a commercial product, there are some military standards that it would need to satisfy. Some equipment that is already out there but doesn't perform as high. Does that equipment being replaced, is it worth the cost and the time to establish the new piece of equipment?
What kind of advice would you have for any Marines or civilians out there who may be interested in coming to work here at Marine Corps Systems Command or in the field of logistics?
I would say if you want to come to Marine Corps Systems Command and you're a Marine, then you already have that passion to make Marines better. You should already have that love to to want to keep Marines in the fight. Do some research first to find out what Marine Corps Systems Command is. I had no clue. I was taught as a young private, the Marine Corps buys the cheapest piece of equipment at the lowest price available, and then gives it to you. So that's what I thought. No one really cared. They just bought us some cheap junk, gave it to us, and we just tried to keep it going. But that's actually not the case. The people that I work with, some of that have never served a day in the military, such as like TJ, they have a real passion for what they do. They have a real love for what they do. They really want to make Marines more lethal. They want to make Marines better. They want to put the best piece of equipment that they can into the Marines' hands and then have that piece of equipment be reliable. My advice is that if you want to come to Systems Command and do that kind of work, do some research and then come. Do it. We are always looking for more.
We had a former commander here at the command, and every time he was posed a question like that and asked about the mission of the command, he would say that our mission is to ensure that the next fight that Marines are in is not a fair fight. I mean, we're here to make sure that our guys have an unfair advantage in that next fight, and I always loved that. So what about for civilians? What do you got?
I would just say that recognize that it's hard work. Even though you're coming to a cube-type environment in front of a computer, there are multiple programs that you're going to manage at different stages of the acquisition and sustainment lifecycle. So you need to just think on your feet and really prioritize, because you're going to have multiple actions that all need to be accomplished. What is the highest priority? And use common sense. As you're working through things, you might have your policies and your guidelines to adhere to, but as you're working through your challenge, try and
be creative in how you fulfill the need for the Marines.
Right.
I get it.
I know. I was trying to find a nice way to say use common sense. Thank you for that.
So, you talk about we come here and we work in cube farms, but there are plenty of opportunities working defense acquisition for the Marine Corps for a civilian to put blue jeans and sneakers on and go to the field and be with the equipment in the environment that it's going to be used. And I think that it is not just a 40-hour a week in the office environment, because you do need to get out and experience what the Marines are going to experience that environment. So, look, I have really enjoyed chatting with the two of you, especially getting so civilian and a military perspective on the same topic all at the same time. Before I let the two of you go, we have a bunch of lightning round questions, and I look forward to hearing each of your answers to these questions. You ready for that?
Oh, yeah. All right.
All right, good to go. So when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I wanted to play basketball. I got into college and found out I was not as good as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, so I started studying business law.
I mean, you're tall, but you're not Kareem tall.
No,
Okay. All right, TJ, what about you?
Similar. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I played baseball up through high school, but then the dream switched once I stopped growing height-wise, and I looked at being a stockbroker. I thought it would be fun to live in New York City and do day trading or a CPA. I ended up just going across the street from UCF to a Navy command, scanned some drawings, and end up working for the military.
All right, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
It's not necessarily a historical figure, I guess, but my great-grandfather Barnett, he was a sharecropper in Starkville, Mississippi, ended up purchasing the land that my relatives worked on during slavery, ended up purchasing a lot of that land. And was able to build the only store that had a gas station in that area for a very long time. And then a lot of that land is still in our family now. But he passed a lot of knowledge on to my grandfather, and then on to me. And I would love to sat down and just kind of picked his brain and talked about some of the things that he's seen and just gain a little bit more wisdom from him.
Sounds like an amazing man. I think I'd like to have dinner with him as well. So excellent. All right, TJ?
I think probably Arnold Palmer. I've actually shook his hand, but not formally met or had dinner with. But when I read his biography, I didn't realize the impact that he had on golf from a commercial point of view. And I think just hearing how he started the Golf Channel and really commercialized the game, it would be very interesting just from a historical perspective, how other individuals have such an impact on industry he has had on golf.
Do you have any tips for maintaining a work-life balance?
Keep a rock in your pocket. And I say that because being in the military, you have a rock that you can lean on. My rock is my wife, Erica. Whether I'm gone or whether I'm at home, she supports. And I cannot thank her enough for that. She is my rock.
Well, Erica, thank you for being there for Judah, and we very much appreciate it. So, TJ?
Really just be prepared. So try and think through the day's events just in the morning as it begins. Just ponder what major emails or verbal interactions and meetings you're going to have, so you have an idea of how to prepare for those interactions and events, and try and maintain a consistent approach at work, while you're out and about with friends, and at home. I found that if you look at life as 16-hour days, 8 hours of sleep, those 16 hours, just try and spend each hour wisely and still have time to relax.
Okay.
If you can.
All right. So what is a TV show, book, movie, or podcast that you'd recommend?
So for me personally, I continuously watch the Rocky series and the Creed series. It's for me, it's not really just about boxing, but it's about being able to pick yourself back up. There are many times when you're down, or you feel down, or you're not going to be able to accomplish what's needed, or a lot of people just doubt you. They don't think that you're going to be able to get whatever it is done, but you do. You are able to, as long as you keep plugging away at it, and you have a positive mental attitude. No matter what anybody else says, you can get through the day. You can make it up whatever hill. You can make it through whichever battle. Having that positive mental attitude.
The success in those movies isn't about not getting knocked down. It's about getting back up every time he gets knocked down. So excellent. TJ?
So the movie I would recommend is The Princess Bride, currently on Disney Plus.
Inconceivable.
Right. So I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that movie as a kid until I watched it with my daughter and saw how much she enjoyed it, and the same parts that I thought was funny or I thought was sad, she thought similar. And when I read this question, that's the first thing that popped in my head is it's just a solid movie.
You'll know you're winning when she starts quoting it in day-to-day life back to you, right?
Yeah. If you can have Andre the Giant in the movie, it's going to be good.
Right. You would say something, your daughter comes back to, well, you are the Brute Squad. I mean, you're really doing great at that. So again, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in today. Thank you for spending some time talking about what you do for a living, what you do for the command, for the Corps, for the country. I really appreciate it. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
This concludes another episode of Equipping the Corps. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. If so, please take a couple minutes to leave us a review, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. Until next time, stay safe. This is Tripp Elliott signing off.